Miyar Adventures, and today we're here at beautiful Mount Baker, and we're out on a climb, but we've decided to stop and do a little bit of skills practice and make a little bit of a film to show you how to do the technique of Crevasse Rescue. The first thing you want to do, if someone goes into a hole, or if someone happens to take a slide down a steep slope, is you want to fall into self-arrest. Now on soft snow like this, I happen not to be wearing crampons, and it's much easier to hold a fall even if it's in a downhill direction. First I fall down onto my ice axe, and my feet actually can do most of the work. If you have crampons on, your feet also can do most of the work, provided you don't start building momentum. Once you start building momentum with crampons on, it can be dangerous to plunge your spikes down into the snow because you can damage or hurt your ankles. Okay, so now I've started to hold the fall. Even though it's uncomfortable and over my right hip, it's very important that I continue to hold that fall. Oftentimes from here, it's possible to start to change positions. Okay, so I might kick my feet in to get a really solid base. I can put my foot over, get myself well established, and if I'm a solo rescuer in this place, in this case, then that's going to be extremely important because I'm going to have to hold the fall while I put in protection and perform a rescue. Okay, so now that I'm here, I'm going to want to get this weight off of me as soon as possible so I can go and check on my partner and make sure he's okay, because I don't know what's happened when he fell into that crevasse. Okay, while maintaining that forward pressure, keeping my axe close at hand. This particular axe, I don't have a tether attached to me. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. It's a matter of personal preference and the kind of terrain you're in. I can begin to remove my coils and my pack. Okay, keep these things close at hand because I can't move, right? Because of my pack, I should always have some kind of protection. I have ice screws on my harness in the event that I happen to be on hard, icy snow or actual ice. And here I have snow pickets, which can be used to pound vertically in hard snow or laid horizontally in unfirm, unconsolidated snow. Okay, generally the easiest thing to do is to place the pickets vertically initially to transfer some of the load, and using yourself as a backup. You always want to have two anchors in the system, and you may have to count as an anchor if you're a solo rescuer. To place this picket, I'm going to find what about vertical is relative to the slope angle, and I'm going to push it back about 10 degrees. And this snow is soft enough, I might start it. This isn't ideal picket snow, harder would be better, but with a solo rescuer, this is what I've got. Okay, with an ice axe like this, I don't have a hammer on the back, so I can't pound this way. And pounding this way is dangerous because if I miss, the sharp edges from this picket can cut my fingers. That's why I turned it sideways and pounded it down that way. Okay, so now I have a piece of protection. On this, I have a non-locking carabiner. I may want that non-locking carabiner later if I'm going to use this prusik that's attached to my waist to secure myself. So I have a prusik attached to my waist. Some people travel with prusiks on the rope, some people don't. If you don't travel with one on the rope and you're a single man trying to do a rescue, it makes things much more difficult. In this case, it's already attached. It's on a separate carabiner, as it always should be for rescues. So I simply pull that off and I clip that locking carabiner directly in. This is a dual action locking carabiner, which adds just a little bit of security. I keep that non-locking carabiner in case I need it, and then I can back off. Okay, when I back off, I want to back off really slowly and keep a good eye on this picket. The other thing I might want to do is cover this picket with some snow, because on a hot day like today, solar radiation is gradually going to melt this picket out, combined with the pressure of the load that's about to be transferred to it. Okay, so I cover that up. I could also use my backpack for that. Now I'm going to ease back toward the crevasse, which is gradually going to load this prusik. Okay, keeping an eye on that picket. So that picket moves, I'm going to need to jump back into self-arrest immediately. Okay, so we're good. Here I have a slight tangle, I'm just going to take care of that. Okay, now I'm going to start to get myself out of this system as soon as I can, and I want to establish more protection for this anchor to make sure that it doesn't fail, because myself and my buddy's life are dependent on it. I'm going to open up these coils. Carrying these as a Mountaineer coil with a nail knot finish. Some people carry them as Kiwi coil, it's a matter of personal preference. Anytime you open up a coil, you want to lay it out flake by flake. You don't want to just drop the whole thing, because oftentimes it can result in a big tangle. Okay, now I'm going to put myself in on a prusik on the back side here, so that if I need to self-arrest while I'm moving around, I will still have some attachment point to that rope. Remember, right now we still have 2 points of contact. I'm an anchor and this is an anchor, and I need to keep an eye on this on occasion, okay? So here, this one, you may have already had attached to your rope, depends on the system you're using. This is part of my foot prusik system. It's a small loop. I use this with a double-linked runner and attached with a locking carabiner as my foot loop, which makes it multiple use because it gives me 2 pieces of material to use for rescues or building anchors. And generally I prefer to use a prusik rather than some of the other friction hitches because it bites a little bit harder in multiple directions. I always check to make sure it works. This is 5mm cord on 8.4mm double rope, and it bites pretty well. Securing myself with a locking carabiner. Okay, and now I can move around just a little bit to put in my second anchor. Here, in order to get out of this knot, I can simply take my carabiner off because I have a little bit of slack here. And in order to make this system mobile in a moment, I'm going to need to unload this particular knot. But for right now, it's serving a function. It's jamming up into this prusik hitch and making sure that that doesn't slide. Before I continue to move, rather than just relying on this stopper knot for the system, I'm going to attach a pulley right here, which I'll be using for mechanical advantage in a little bit. I like to use one master point carabiner, especially with the double locking mechanism on it. It just makes it a little bit easier to organize and see where everything's going and attach my next piece of protection. Okay, so now I'm on the back side here. I can tie a catastrophe knot here. In the event that this failed, once I take this knot out, I'm not going to lose my partner or myself, provided the anchors fail, or provided the anchors hold. Okay, so now I've locked that in. I'm on the back side, so I'm free to move around. I want to put in another piece of protection before I go down and check on my buddy here. Making sure this is holding. Okay, positioning myself in self-arrest, or in a position where I can go into self-arrest quick in case this starts to fail. I would then dig, in this case, a T-slot because of the type of snow that I have here. And a T-slot is essentially, I dig laterally down in the snow or perpendicular to the direction of pull that I want. And with firm snow like this, I've dug down about 1 foot to 1.5 feet. The deeper you go, generally the more solid it is. Before you do that, I like to work harden or stamp or pat down with my hands a 1 meter by 1 meter area. So 3 feet by 3 feet. Here I've pre-work hardened this surface, cut the slot behind, and I've made sure to cut this T portion at least as deep as the trough. I always cut the trough deeper than the picket that I'm going to place. And the reason for that is as you dig, the edges of your slot tend to form like this. So if you want it as long as your piece of protection at the bottom, you're going to have to dig it bigger at the top. So here's that picket. I've used my cordelet and girth hitched one of the middle rungs or one of the middle holes, making sure that the knot is offset. That gives me plenty of length, extension, which I can tie off or use to lock off on my master point that I've started to create. Okay, I set that on in there. Bring that out. And in this case, my T isn't quite directed at my master point, so I'm going to want to dig that so it points directly at my master point. We set this up in advance just to save time for the film here. If you ever do have to dig near a piece of protection, you want to be really mindful of that piece of protection, that you're not compromising its integrity. Okay, so now I've got this T pointed at my master point and at least as deep as the piece of protection that I have in there. Oftentimes I like to get that a little deeper in my piece of protection, or what you'll have is the piece of protection is in and the cordage that you're using to attach the anchor point is coming up and outside the hole, and it will actually lever up and pull your piece of protection up and out of the hole. Okay, lay that in there. That's going to be good. Now I'm going to backfill this. I actually saved a lot of my backfill. This is an uphill slope. It's a little bit difficult to do that. And I pull from the back. I don't want to pull any of the material from the front because this is the material that's holding that piece of protection in place. Remember, you are still part of the system as you do this. You need to be ready to go into self-arrest with or without an ice axe at any point. Important not only to rework harden the back part of the T, but also the part that contains the piece of cord that leads out to your anchoring system. This portion. Again, drawing material from outside of the area you've previously work hardened. One of the reasons you want this anchor to be so strong is you are about to lower yourself down toward the crevasse. So you have two bodies potentially hanging in space if you need to rappel to your partner. And if you do need to do a full rescue, you'll actually need to do a 3-to-1 haul, maybe more advantage. You might be able to get away with 2-to-1 haul, but that subjects the anchor to more force, so it needs to be very strong. Okay, at this point, I'm ready to transfer the next anchor to our master point carabiner. To do that, I'm going to use a tension hitch. This is a 2-to-1 pulley system that I use to transfer some of the load from the vertically placed picket to the dead man placed picket. I simply pull, pinch it just a little, and I lock it off. If you've done a trucker's hitch before, you've done something similar to this. I can simply pass the tail through as a backup, or I can pull a bunch of slack and then tie this off in an overhand knot. For right now, speed is of the essence, so I'm going to just pass the tail through and leave that off to the side. That also keeps on my carabiners rather than using a carabiner to lock that particular hitch off. Okay, so now I have a somewhat equalized master point. You'll never get true equalization when one anchor is set first and then you add the other. But the point of this is for one anchor to back up the other and to have at least one picket that's a dead man or something that you are certain is not going to fail when you load it by lowering yourself into the crevasse or start applying mechanical advantage. Okay, I'm still on. I may need my backpack with my medical kit if I need to stop some bleeding. Generally, there's not a lot you can do down in the crevasse. You really want to get the person to the surface, but the backpack can serve as padding for the lip of the crevasse in order to haul them up and overhang. So I'm going to bring my backpack. I'm going to come down on the prusik. I may need my ice axe as a probe. This can also be used as lip padding. I kind of bump with my hand using on the prusik to make sure that if I were to slip, it's going to hold. And getting close to the lip, I'm going to tie myself a backup knot. In this case, I'm just going to use a clove hitch because it's adjustable, so that'll allow me to get closer if needed. Short on carabiners, you can use two non-lockers. I still have one more locker. Doing okay, Jay?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Out on your own?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it sounded like you know. Okay, I'm going to try to haul you down.
Yeah. Please, faster.
Okay, at this point I may need to stay down here to prepare a lip if there's a bit of an overhang of snow leading down into the vertical surfaces of the crevasse. So I may need to stay down here. Oftentimes when I'm traveling on a glacier, going toward a summit, I keep everything in a plastic bag. A plastic bag is a gorilla sack. It can be used as an emergency bivy sack. It waterproofs my gear, and it can also serve as an easy means to take everything out of my pack if I need to use the pack for another purpose. If you are preparing a lip or chopping away snow at the surface, make sure that you're doing so far away from the tension rope. Chopping near the tension rope could be inviting disaster because of course you could actually chop the rope. Okay, let's say I prepared that lip. Backpack frames work really well as padding. Okay, would you go ahead and sit down for me? Sit down right on the ground. All the way down on the ground. There we go. So if Jay was in a crevasse, obviously this rope would be tensioned right down flat into the snow. And this backpack, by placing it underneath the rope, prevents the rope from continuing to cut deeper and deeper into the lip of that crevasse. always good to have resources with you instead of leaving them behind. And here, I'm leaving my backup knot in, but I'm going to take out my original tie-in point. This can be a little bit tricky depending on how easily your original knot bit. But oftentimes by prying back on it and working, you can get that knot to start to come undone. If it didn't come undone, once you set up your haul system, you can do one haul. That will relieve the tension on that knot, and then you can pull it out. Okay, everything right now is on the prusik, through the pulley, backed up on this. Before I take this out, I want to make sure I put myself in as a part of the backup system and put on my 3-to-1. To get my maximum haul, I'm going to put my tractor pulley, which is a combination of another prusik, usually a short prusik, and a carabiner, or a short prusik, a carabiner with a pulley, far down. The further down I can put it, the bigger my initial pull can be. This does not have to be a locking carabiner because their life is dependent on the stuff up there, and I'm the backup. Hook through, make sure that your prusik is outside of the system, not trapped on the other side of this carabiner, or you won't be able to move.